Hello and welcome. Ukrainian forces achieve successes at several parts of the front line. The Russians admit that parts of their defensive line apparently has fallen and is now occupied by the Ukrainians. We also have Russian reports that look in the direction of the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence agency, was trying to stage a landing on the Crimean Peninsula. We'll look into this as well, and we'll talk about Prigozhin and the Ministry of Defense. It seems like Prigozhin was not just utterly defeated, he's on his way to insignificance, or at least to losing huge parts of Wagner itself, its power, etc. We'll talk about this in this situational picture. There's fighting ongoing northeast of Kupiansk here. Several Russian mill bloggers claim that Sinkivka has fallen. There is no proof whatsoever. Sinkivka seems to be clearly in Ukrainian hands as of now, but the Russians might have had some advances to the west and to the east of it. At least I find Ukrainian military bloggers writing about this, which makes it fairly likely. Sinkivka itself, I have no indication whatsoever that it has fallen. There was a video circling around yesterday, but it was from a completely different town. After geolocalization, it was clear that this video didn't show Sinkivka. Fighting is also going on at different parts of the front line. The Ukrainians staged a heavy attack from Torske to the east. That was not successful, but we have Wargonzo confirming that the Ukrainians actually gained some ground south of or close to Dibrova in the Serebryansk forest, so the Ukrainians finally managed to grab some territory back. The fighting there is ongoing for months, and usually it was the Russians gaining some ground there, especially lately, but now we have Russian confirmation of Ukrainian successes. Further south, the fighting is concentrated around Bakhmut. Russians were attacking from Berkhivka. I cannot confirm recent successes, but what we do have is that the Ukrainians recently shelled the Russians in this piece of woodland here. So the front line, this pro-Ukrainian map is likely not accurate here. The front line should be more or less around here, but I cannot confirm that the fresh Russian attacks achieved anything. Instead, I have, for instance, Wargonzo again saying that their attacks were unsuccessful. Wargonzo is also writing that they tried to attack the high ground from Klishivka with armored forces and that they failed, that they have not advanced here. So fighting is continuing here, and the Ukrainians were successful in the area between Klishivka and Andrivka here in the woodlands. There some advances overall, but no overall change in the situation whatsoever. So in the general situation, we have here Hanna Maliar, the Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine. She claims that they liberated 43 square kilometers in total around Bakhmut, and in the last week, 3 square kilometers. Whether this area around here is enough for 3 square kilometers, I can't really know. I cannot confirm anything closer to this 3 square kilometers, but let's just leave it at what she said. I simply cannot confirm it. Further south, around Avdiivka, fighting is also continuing, but we have good news for Ukraine. This mine here has fallen to the Russians weeks ago. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense ignored that, didn't admit the defeat, and we see the pro-Ukrainian map here not showing it either, just showing it in the so-called gray zone. But what we do have here is 2 Ukrainian T-64s at exactly this mine and shelling it, and you see they are basically 80 meters away from it. So the Ukrainians at the very least are directly at the mine, and obviously not that contested. We see them shelling the buildings, which clearly indicates that the Russians have a permanent presence in there, which would mean that this area was actually red and not in the gray zone. Fighting is also continuing here, and the tower visible here on the right is in the south of this, so they were attacking from this direction. We know that they have reached this. I cannot confirm that they were successful, but this should show us that they probably will be able to retake the mine fairly soon. At least we know that they have controlled the break-in by the Russians here. There's fighting also ongoing here in the railroad line. I cannot confirm any change in territory though. I can also not confirm change in territory. Marinka, Vuhledar, where obviously battles are also continuing. The Ukrainians might have achieved some successes west of Staromayorsk here. The Russians report Ukrainian attacks southwards from Uroshaine, unsuccessful though, and they report heavy Ukrainian pressure on this ledge here. That I think it's called ledge. You know what I mean. The extension of the front line here. So the Ukrainians want to push in to even the front line between Priutne and Staromayorske. So far, they have not been fully successful, even though they do advance in the tree lines here over the last few days. The bigger news is from Orikhiv. We have ongoing successes by the Ukrainians here. Wargonzo was reporting yesterday that the Ukrainians attacked in Robotine and Verbove. Between them, there is a promotion, so they gained some additional ground. And the bigger news is part of the forward defense line of the Russian Federation Armed Forces is now under control of the armed forces of Ukraine. So they admit that parts of their defensive line has fallen. Now, unless we take this, which already was under Ukrainian control, between Robotine and Verbove, it seems it would make sense that this line is now partially occupied by the Ukrainians. If they had success between the two lines, it seems they were advancing somewhat in this direction. There were Ukrainian claims yesterday that Robotine is already liberated, but so far I cannot confirm it. Let's first go to the second claim from today. Again, Wargonzo, and they say the Ukrainians entrenched themselves in the northern part of the village and advanced in Verbove. So again, they advanced in Verbove. When it comes to the liberation of it, I cannot confirm it yet. We see Ukrainians here in Robotine, and you see that they are fairly south. This is the building that was recently shelled when it was still under Russian use by the Russian military. And we see west of it a tank and a Bradley. Here the Bradley shoots with its autocannons, obviously in buildings to either suppress Russian forces in those buildings or to engage them once they have been identified. This is fairly to the south already. This is the crossroads here, and these are the last buildings. This is roughly 700 meters away from the overall front line. I think we have something here, yeah. They were shooting, if I'm not completely wrong, at those buildings. I think there are combat scenes further south that I was not fully able to confirm, though. And we have the Ukrainian military blogger showing that they advance here. And this should be at this crossroads again, where they are advancing. The interesting part here is less that a Ukrainian claims they advanced, which, even though it's likely, would not be full proof for us here. The more interesting part is why I mention him here is that we had Ukrainian claims that the town is liberated, and we clearly see other Ukrainian military bloggers say, nope, not liberated yet. The southern part is at the very least still in the gray zone, or it is controlled, so it's contested, or it's still controlled by the Russians. It seems likely that Robotine should fall within the next 24 to 48 hours. After that, the Russians will likely fall back to that tree line here, where they also have some fortifications, so the advance will be stopped there fairly fast. We should not expect the Ukrainians to simply keep marching south. Generally, though, we have other here two majors confirming heavy fighting in the center of town. And we had this video here. This was from that same area. Voenko posting it, even though it's from Wargonzo, and it was geolocalized here as well. So the Ukrainians are in this very area here. That much we can confirm. They are advancing inside of town. We have the Russians striking a Kazivek here with an FPV drone. You can see them carrying a stretcher, and now they start running. They realize it's coming, and they run in all directions right before the drone is hitting. And that was geolocalized here, so they are also advancing in these areas here. They are advancing further as well. Russian positions here are being pushed back, that much we have for sure. But as of now, Robotine is still not under full control of the Ukrainians, at least when I finished my research. The interesting thing is, though, what we have from other parts of the war zone. The Russians claim that here we have Rybar claiming that their planes sank 2 boats. The interesting part is less that claim, because obviously if the Russians claim it and we don't have image proof, whatever, we don't take it too serious. The interesting is that they said the floating craft, the boat, was located 38 kilometers west of Cape Tarkhan Kut. And this is directly here at the Crimean Peninsula. They were supposedly sinking it here. They also, by the way, sank another one, according to them, east of the Snake Island. But we'll come to that right away, just so you have the explanation here. They are claiming the intelligence agency of Ukraine. Where was it? Main Intelligence Directorate of Ukraine. That should be the SBU, if I'm not completely wrong, where it was a landing force. They claim it was a landing group of the main intelligence directorate, which would mean that according to them, either this was the first time all the Ukrainians bring in troops from their intelligence agency for sabotage, maybe for reconnaissance, to connect with partisans. And obviously it could also mean to prepare a naval invasion. At least that's what the Russian military bloggers are afraid of, that the Ukrainians can actually set up a bridgehead there and keep it against Russian attacks, be able to supply it. I can't, by the life of it, imagine that this is a realistic possibility, but we will have to see this here. The second attack was on another boat here, and they said it was on the way to offshore platforms. That should be gas and oil. I'm not completely sure if it's only natural gas or oil as well, and they conclude that that apparently the Ukrainians are using them for military purpose, which would make us expect that they might be struck with Russian air attacks fairly soon, and then probably leading to the risk, at least, of an ecological disaster in the Black Sea this way. The last big news we have are the drama that is happening with Wagner. We have this channel here, which we mentioned a couple of times. It is well connected in Russian intelligence agencies, and so far has been mostly reliable. According to them, Alexei Dyumin, who is a confidant of Putin, he was a former bodyguard of him. He's now the governor of Tula and a lieutenant general. He was considered to be a potential replacement for Shoigu in regards to the Wagner uprising, the Wagner military uprising. Military bloggers were considering him to replace Shoigu, and now he apparently has been forced to appear in public despite a known dislike between the two persons. He was forced to appear in public with Shoigu, who was wearing his full regalia, showing basically deference towards Shoigu, showing unity and accepting Shoigu as a superior. Dyumin was a former deputy defense minister, and he basically, by appearing publicly with him, by walking around, would accept Shoigu as a superior, as a public sign of the support of Shoigu. This shows that the attempts by Prigozhin to change the general staff and the defense ministry have utterly failed by now, and now we hear even more that the Ministry of Defense is not implementing parts of its agreement with Wagner Orchestra here, and now that the armed forces have carte blanche, basically they are freely to do whatever they want with the supporters of Prigozhin, of Wagner. Today there were reports that Surovikin, who was already under house arrest for several weeks and who was considered to be a supporter of Wagner and Prigozhin, is now being fired. Now, this differentiates a little. I found in Western media the reports that he's fired. And with Russian military bloggers, of course, translation might be the issue here. It was said that he's suspended. So he's officially suspended now, but they said in theory he could be reinstated into command. So what is actually correct, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems that at least he was not thrown out of the military, so it might be true that he might be reinstated. But as said, as of now, translations vary between the two sides, so I do not know. This is obviously important because Surovikin was not just for a time the commander of the invasion. He's generally well liked and respected within the military, and firing him, getting rid of him, would have an impact on the morale of the armed forces. There can be no doubt about this. We also have the report that a Russian Ministry of Emergency Situation, Ilyushin 76, had flown to Bamako in Mali, And this was supposedly with Wagner forces on it, and not just with Wagner forces, but actually with Prigozhin on it. I can't show you the video here because of some software issues, but you can see his outline, and you've seen him in the thumbnail. Prigozhin is in Mali, and he talks like how beautiful it is, and that how much they advance Russian interests, and that they are going to fight the nightmares of ISIS and Al Qaeda and other gangsters and so on and so forth. And we have our channel again, and they say that he's running out of money and he needs to look up to he even paid the local population to show support for Russia and for Wagner, and that he's desperately looking for new income possibilities and potentially new recruits, because formerly Wagner was the size of an army, combined arms army as they call it, and now it's the size of a motorized brigade, meaning that Wagner is currently bleeding personnel left, right, and center. They're also saying that the vacationers are not going to return, probably because there's nothing left to pay them, and the departure of parts of Wagner from Belarus is also connected with this. This would mean that whatever was the deal is not being held, and that the financial sources for Wagner are now under stress, and Wagner will diminish in size and in importance in the future. This was it from me for now. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps with the algorithm, and leave a comment what you think about the future of Wagner in this current conflict. And if you think the Ukrainians already do this for some time, landing on the Crimean Peninsula, or if Riba has spread some fantasies here. If you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And this channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you also like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.